Hi everyone, this is Adya and Sana from Team Envisionli. Today we will be talking to an animator, Nirmal David.
My name is Nirmal David. I'm an animation director. I also do concept art and character design and some level of game design. I'm currently an animation director for the studio called The Circus in Hyderabad. And I also have my own company that's developing a game called Bot Runs. And we're also working on developing some other IPs for television, Netflix and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what I do.
What are 3 words you would use to describe your job?
Hello? Well, it's 3 words to describe my job. For me personally, fun is definitely the most important aspect. I love doing what I do. Second, it makes me a student all the time. I'm still studying. It feels like that every day when I work. And the third is hard work. It's a lot of hard work. Yeah.
So next question is, did you study animation in college? If yes, then what were the courses you were taught and what were everything you learned?
Back when I was starting out, unfortunately, there were not many courses for good courses for animation, and I was very set on doing animation when I was really young. So what I did instead was I did fine art. In fact, I majored in sculpture and got my foundation really strong in art. Well, animation, cinema, essentially it's all visual medium, and what you need to know is a solid grounding in art, right? So I took care of that first. And then after that I thought, should I do a master's in animation or should I just dive right in and learn in the trenches? And I chose option 2 because I was too eager to get in there. And I think that's what happened. Well, I could have done a master's and then maybe PhD in animation, but I don't think that would have really helped me in my career much. Other than the scenario where someone in the plane says, "Is there a doctor on the flight?" And I can say, "Yes, I am, but I can't take it." So that's that. So I dove right in and then learned pretty much from colleagues and teaching myself. So it took a long time. But nowadays there are a lot of good courses for animation out there. So I don't think it's the same kind of struggle that we face. There are a lot more options now. So I think it's much more clear. The art fundamental thing stays the same. You really need to have solid art fundamentals to be a good animator.
Did you always want to work in animation?
Well, okay, so most of the time when you ask people that question, at least when I do interviews with students, I always get this one movie that apparently made 80% of the animators that I know want to do animation, and that's good at But that wasn't it for me because by the time Jurassic Park came on, I already knew it. Right? Growing up watching cartoons is definitely a big influence, and finding out how they were made really changed my life. And then when I started messing around and doing small stuff by myself, and this is back in the computers, before the computers were prevalent in homes. Right? So we were doing small flip books and scanning, photographing drawings and playing them in a camera. But the first time I saw something that I didn't move come to life, I was love at first sight for me. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Right? So there was, So I think by 9th grade I was already working towards being an animator, studying the books, learning the techniques.
So what is the social perception of being an animator? How do people perceive it?
Well, one thing I'll tell you, a lot of people come into the industry thinking it's going to be all fun and right? Hey, what are you making? You're making cartoons all day. Come on, that should be fun. But they completely underestimate the amount of hard work that goes into making everything that you see rush by on screen. Every second that rushes by on screen has got someone's blood, sweat, and tears and gone into making that thing happen. So the perception, I think, is, it's a fun job for people who refuse to grow up. Yeah, we do refuse to grow up, and I do that. But we still watch cartoons all day and pay it for work, so we can get away with that. But it is a lot of hard work.
Can you briefly describe a day as an animator?
So normally, for example, if you're working for a studio, I used to, you have someone come and give you what's called the pre-riz, just like the pre-visualization of what the shot is going to be like, right? So let's say it was Alvin and the Chipmunks, there'd be like this storyboard of three chipmunks standing, so you know where they are facing, who's talking, doing all that. What is the major gestures and actions that you need to do? And we get a dialogue contract. And so let's call that a shot. So we'll get a number of shots assigned to us. And then you go back to your desk, you study the previous and the storyboard, and by then you should already know what characters are like, what Alvin's character personality is, what Hero is like, and the other day. So normally what I would do before a shot is go to a room where there's a giant mirror and a video camera, and we take the dialogue, we play it in the background, and then we act it out. So we try many variations of the same shot, how each character would act out, and then we would choose like the best reference from that. And then I would study the video and see what all I'm doing to really make that. Right? What are my eyebrows doing? How am I blinking? Where are my eyes darting? What are my hands doing? How I'm using to shift my balance on my hips, all that stuff. That goes into basically what we call body acting. And then we get right into the shot. And usually, for most studios, they'll have something called the daily. So let's say it's post-lunch around 3 o'clock or so, where all the animators shoot out whatever updates they have, and then the director will go through it and start giving more and corrections of what you need to do. Maybe change the whole approach, maybe you like it, so you can polish it and whatnot. And then we take it from there. So from there you go into what's called a rough animation stage, and then like a polish. And each stage takes days sometimes for a feature film. But for like a television series, it's not really quick. So it depends on what kind of project you're working on. Your day pretty much, changes based on that.
Okay. So you said animation is a field that requires a lot of hard work, right? So how much free time do you actually end up getting?
For a beginner, I would say none. You will be completely consumed by it because you will be learning every second. Right? You'll be learning technique, software, acting, just animation fundamentals. There's so much of stuff that you need to learn. So eventually, like where I am right now, for example, I do find like a deliberate work-life balance because I truly believe that as an animator, especially as an animator and as any artist, you learn from life, right? If you don't go out there and live your life, what do you have to? What are you contributing to? Right? You need to build a library of experiences in your head that really helps you make great art. So I think that's an important balance, and I do believe that kids today kind of have that. They really kind of figure out their fun time with the work time and that. For us, it wasn't like that. We used to live in the studio, sleep under the desk. Somebody will wake you up and they get back to your shop. Yeah, but things are changing. But hard time, a free time, I think is basically what you make of it. Right? You need to find a way to find your free time. So it is a demanding job, and in the beginning it can be overwhelming, but at the same time people just learn to work with the tools they have and get better and find the shortcut and move fast. Yeah.
So what aspect of your job sort of makes you glad that you became an animator?
I think one of the most rewarding things is watching something you've done on the big screen. Like especially going to a cinema and watching it with a bunch of strangers. Maybe some of your teammates as well, but watching with the strangers and then them reacting to a shot that you've done in a positive way, that's great reward. It's very, very satisfying to watch. That's like immediate feedback, right? You see someone did a funny shot, people end up laughing. That's really good. Essentially, we are storytellers, right? When someone reacts positively to a thing you did, it makes you very happy. Yeah? I think that's definitely the most rewarding thing to me.
Out of all the projects that you've created, which one do you think will be your favorite?
Well, projects I've worked on versus projects I've created are really two different things. So
okay, you can give both of them.
Okay, so projects I've created, my favorite is currently what we worked on, which is Spot. Something that I've started in 2008. Like the small sketches and stuff that I started working towards in 2008, and it took me nearly I would say 5-6 years before it could actually get into production. Right? So I think that's definitely something, and it is my baby, so I might be a bit partial towards it. But projects that I've worked on, favorites, Star Wars: The Clone Wars is definitely one of my fun shows because it was very fast-paced and a lot of action. And it was Star Wars. We got to know the stories before the audience did, which was great. And the other one will have to be, I think, I think Golden Compass was great because we did a lot of realistic animals, and so we got to study a lot of animals. And we, in fact, even had a live elephant coming in the studio where animators could sit around and watch and draw and learn how an elephant moves. And, so that was fun. It was very educational too. Yeah, I think these are the two I would really pull out from my creation work list.
Okay.
Oh, and we won an Academy Award for Golden Compass. That took it even higher.
Okay, so is there a part of animation that you don't enjoy? So what would be your least favorite part?
That's easy actually. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with animation methodology, but there was back in the day 2D animation, which was all hand-drawn, which was painful physically, literally. But the thing was, your limit was basically your imagination, right? You could do whatever the hell you want, as long as you could draw it and make it look amazing. Whereas now when we do digital, it actually makes a lot of things easier, but it also adds a lot of steps in the pipeline which makes it a real thing. So there are a lot of technical things you need to do before you can get your character to live in that thing. And I find myself running out of patience mostly with the technical side. You can't wait to get into the actual fun bits, like the acting and the animation, storytelling.
Okay, so you prefer 2D over 3D?
In some sense, but 3D also liberates you because it can do a lot of things that is real. It might take years to do in 2D, but you can do it in like 3 days. 3D, in 2D it might take years, but in 3D it will be done in days. So there are, I think it's a give and take. And nowadays there are techniques which allow me to basically mix both 2D and 3D, so I can use the goodness of 3D, but the freedom of 2D together. So that kind of stuff is really fun. Yeah.
So our next question is like similar to what you were saying in your answer. Is 3D animation more popular than 2D?
Well, today definitely. Mainly because at the speed at which it can be done, most productions choose 3D because it's easy to replicate and cheat and do a whole bunch of things to get a show off. So especially on television, a lot of it's done in 3D. Features, so definitely 90% of them are done.
What level of art skills are required to, become an animator?
For example, in 3D animation, there are different departments. Right? So I'm mainly in animation. So our focuses are more art and acting and things like that. For that, you definitely need a good, solid foundation of art. Not to be like someone who starts up, but I know a lot of people who aren't great artists who aren't great animators. So I don't want to make like a gentle statement, but ideally having good art skills will help because it helps you visualize and think and find the appeal in the poses and make it beautiful. So there are a whole bunch of things that art definitely help. But the art is not the only thing in 3D. Like I said, there are a lot of technical positions as well. People with coding skills and a technical bent of mind are equally valuable in the team. So choose what you want to do.
So in writing and art and all of that, you need to make portfolios. Is it similar in animation? Like, do you have to make one?
Indeed. So in fact, when I hire someone, I do not. Sorry to say this, but I've never looked at and I don't look at people's resume, right? So sometimes the producer will look at the resume and then pass it on to me. But I would much rather see his reel, what we call a reel, which is a portfolio, but it's just video, right? So let's call it a montage of shots that he's worked on, some of his test work or whatever. So all I need to do is basically just look at that and see how good she is, right? And then if I look at the resume, for example, the only time I actually look at the resume is to see how long someone has been in the So that's the only time I actually look at the resume, but otherwise it's always field. And if you have great drawings in there that show your potential, that's even better.
So just out of curiosity, so you haven't worked on any projects yet. How do you still build a portfolio?
So just like any field, there are a lot of learning exercises. So when I look at a beginner's reel, I don't expect to see some stellar animation of the with great acting and all the fundamentals sorted. What I look for is potential. So you can actually see someone's strength of mind in terms of art skills or what I call a growable potential in what they do, even if it's just an exercise.
So our last few questions are: what qualities would you look for in someone who wants to do animation or wants to become an animator?
I would say number one for me would be art, ability to see things, visualize things, ability to slightly think out of the box in terms of, especially with acting and acting choices and working with narratives, right? Great storytelling skills. That's a that's a great plus, and that doesn't mean you need to talk. You can even draw stories, but as long as you have the great, you can make stories that captivate. The thing would be a total, open mind to learn constantly. I've been in the industry since 2001, and I still feel like I'm learning every day. Right? So you can't ever close yourself to that book. Every time you meet a person, you notice something about, them that you might add in a shot later. So you're always studying constantly. Animals, people, things, colors, lighting, everything you're constantly studying. So I think a way of looking at the world that way really helps.
What advice would you give somebody who wants to get into animation?
Well, one thing I'd say is don't dabble in it. If you really want to get into it, start working towards it, right? It's not something that you can do on the side. It's something that takes a lot out of you. So the first thing I would do is ask that person to really polish up his or her art skills, right? Work on the fundamentals, get a solid grounding in visual art, and that will help you move on to any other step, no matter if it's live action filmmaking or animation. I think having a solid foundation in art is an important thing. And then the other thing I would do is go for acting courses, workshops, theaters that you can actually be part of, because that's going to be a massive life experience when you actually animate. Having a great sense of rhythm and music helps. Even though there are a lot of people I know who are animators, who are tone deaf and beat deaf, but having music in your blood really does help, because a lot of animation has a sense of rhythm and texture and timing and all that. Really helps.
Okay. I actually have one additional question that wasn't a part of our plan, but a lot of students do want to know how lucrative is animation as a field when you first start off?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. First start off, it's not lucrative at all. You'll be lucky to get paid. Though things are changing now. But as you climb, it starts getting really good. And then sky's the limit, right? So I'm assuming this is the same in a lot of the fields. As a beginner, you get like a pittance to just, essentially the payment you're getting is learning in a studio, right?
Yeah.
So you don't think about the money, you think about what you're learning there. And this is something that I keep telling beginners all the time. Even if you're getting paid well, if you're not learning much, you should get out there and go to a job that pays less than teaches you more. Right? Because the first 5-6 years really shapes who you become as an artist and as an animator. So surrounding yourself with really talented people and learning from them constantly would be the best payment you can get. So I would say focus on that, not on the money. Money will come eventually. Right?
We hope you enjoyed watching this video and learned something new. Thank you.